Jellicent. A Pokemon to whom an increasingly large number of frankly bizarre traits are often attributed, and subject to some of the more panicky Pokédex entries. If the slightly worrying current black entry is to be believed, then the seas south of the Castlia Peninsula ought to be somewhat choked with wrecked ships, and yet the Royal Unova appears to be able to make a daily cruise through these waters without any kind of complaint. In any case, such aggressive behavior toward entities much larger than themselves would suggest a fiercely territorial nature, but such does not appear to be the case. Any number of sampling studies have shown multiple Jellicent coexisting in the same vicinity of water, though of course with significantly higher numbers of Frillish. Of course, to bicker about what we apparently already know is all very well, and there are certainly cases of Jellicent having overturned smaller fishing or even research boats in reliable literature. However, this is to ignore the biggest puzzle facing us when we are forced to examine Jellicent. How does it work? It has distinguishable mouthparts, and optical facilities, so must in some respect have a working central nervous and in all likelihood digestive system. This is complicated, however, by the fact that a significant percentage of its body is nothing but water, and its unusual feeding habits, which have, even to this day, been chalked up to the rather fanciful explanation that it is feeding off its victim's life energy, whatever that may be. As one of those who refuse to chalk up peculiar observations to the doings of wizards, I find this mystery particularly compelling. Jellicent's poisons are, in the view of most, remarkably potent. One would think that such would be counterproductive for a Pokémon that can only feed on living prey. Furthermore, I would see the fully developed mouthparts as evidence of it needing to, at least, ingest some sort of organic material. I am not certain of the conversion rate of life energy to matter, but I am certain it could not be sufficient to build the entirety of Jellicent's complex anatomy under any reasonable time frame. Oh, and I am unconvinced that the mouth exists purely to render the organism able to say its own name. As far as gender differences go, Jellicent exhibit some of the most extensive ever recorded. While one would assume that the blue color of the male Jellicent was a useful camouflage technique, this argument rather breaks down when one observes the somewhat alarming pink coloring of the female. Furthermore, the female's mouthparts are visible above its flotation ring, whereas the male's, which is bigger and more pronounced, is hidden below. Whatever the evolutionary reasons for this are, it has led some to consider whether, like Nidoran and Tauros, Miltank, whether the females ought to be considered a different species altogether to the males. This argument is still ongoing. The standard Pokémon metabolism is essentially the same to any other living being, where food is digested into smaller components which the organism uses to support its life. However, Jellicent isn't bound by such feeble limitations. It actually knows how to tap into the very source of life itself. So, since it completely lacks a digestive system, it therefore deemed it appropriate to equip itself with other traits to make its hunt for prey much more manageable, thus becoming a royal pain within its oceanic habitat. There is little known about the few species who feed upon life energy, or spectralvas as they're now apparently called. Expeditions to Jellicent nests usually result in more eggs adorning their home, and bred individuals aren't as vicious in their diet as their wild counterparts. It may not even be an entirely biological dilemma, since more and more people are suggesting that it can only be explained through metaphysics. The most popular theory right now? It steals and converts raw existential energy to fuel its own physical presence and body functions. Shockingly enough, none have been able to repeat the process in a lab environment. The cnidarians, jellyfish, corals, anemones, and others, are a bizarre group of creatures, but Jellicent would be considered bizarre even in respect to the other members of the phylum. The strangest feature is its pronounced sexual dimorphism, unusual in a group of animals that are usually hermaphrodites, with all members capable of reproducing asexually as well. While there are some cnidarians, some species of corals for instance, that are male or female, releasing only sperm or eggs, they all live the same immobile, filter-feeding lifestyle that leaves literally no need for sexual dimorphism of any kind aside from release sperm or release eggs. Why a free-floating medusa would need to evolve notable sexual dimorphism was a great mystery to scientists in the past. The female Jellicent is especially strange, as its pink coloration makes it an easily discovered target for many predators, both in and above the water. Many sea creatures use red coloration, but this is usually used in moderately deep-sea environments where the red wavelength of light rays are unable to reach, leaving these creatures an infuriatingly difficult to spot. Dark color to the naked eye. Jellicent, including the females, are found in great numbers at the surface of the water, although they are capable of adjusting the air in their bodies to sink to impressive depths. So what's with the pink colors? The answer is a very bizarre evolved cycle of reproduction, fitting of a cnidarian. Like all cnidarian Pokémon, other species include Tentacool, Tentacruel, Corsola, and the once thought to be extinct Lileep and Cradily. Jellicent has the odd ability of making hard-shelled eggs. However, Jellicent takes it one step further, and reinforces the eggs to allow them to act as parasites to predators, or perhaps it would be better to think of them as seeds, and the Jellicent as a fruit. It turns out that Jellicent are completely capable of feeding and mating at greater depths, where both blue and pink colors are difficult to detect, and they can live relatively undisturbed. They only come to the surface specifically to be preyed upon, for the purpose of reproduction. Once a female Jellicent, I felt it was necessary to specify in this day and age, successfully takes sperm into its body, it produces tough eggs inside its body, and swims to the surface. There, it waits until it is attacked, and ingested, by a predatory bird or fish. At this point, the seeds are eaten by the predator, and will eventually pass through the predator's digestive tract and be released into the water, where they will eventually hatch into the medusa that will become fully formed frillish. With this ability, Jellicent are able to spread to new areas and form new colonies more efficiently. Meanwhile, the parent Jellicent will regenerate from its uneaten body parts, usually reproducing asexually into 3 or 4 new frillish. On a side note, Jellicent's endurance and recovery abilities used in battle evolved for the purpose of this asexual reproduction method. The only limitation on this incredible life force is the great energy drain that results. The loss of body parts and process of forced regeneration results in a great loss of energy, and the feat cannot be repeated until the medusa feeds enough and grows enough to stabilize its condition. So after the Jellicent has been eaten, the resulting frillish sink to greater depths to regenerate.